The postal system handles millions of mail pieces every day. All you need to do is put your heartfelt letter in an envelope, write the address, slap on a stamp, and dump it into this mysterious box. And it magically spawns onto your friend's doorstep. But I've always wanted to know what's really going on behind the postal system. And what better way to find out than to become the mail? Wait, what? Goodbye. Let me out. Your journey starts here. With Posty, your friendly local mail carrier. Once a day, Posty drives around in a van, collecting mail from each mailbox on their designated route. Once complete, Posty returns the mail to their regional mail sorting facility, along with all the other Posties in the area. And you end up in a giant jumbled mail mountain. Now it's time to send everything off to their delivery addresses. But where do we even start? Sorting centers in the US can receive millions of pieces of mail every day, and they're all going to different places. This one's going local, this one's going regional, and this one's going international. We could get these human monkeys to sort through them one by one, but that would take forever. So instead, we unleashed the Sortatron 3000! A highly specialized sorting robot that can sort up to 40,000 letters per hour. Oh, that's right, she's a very picky eater, and only likes eating standard-sized letters. But this mail mountain consists of all shapes and sizes, so first we need a way of filtering the mail to leave only the sizes that Sortatron likes. So we unleash the Colortron 3000! A different robot specialized at removing unwanted mail sizes before feeding it to Sortatron. Colortron's real name is the Color Facer Canceller Machine, and each of these fancy words stands for a different process that the mail pieces will go through. The first stage is the culling. And this is where Colortron gets rid of the mail that Sortatron doesn't like. There's 4 types of mail you can expect in the jumbled mail mountain. Flat but oversized mail, flat but undersized mail, flat and standard sized mail, perfect for Sortatron consumption, and mail that's not really flat at all. To start, all the mail is dumped into a hopper and onto a conveyor belt. But there's a problem right away. It's all bunched up, and passing giant clumps through Colortron can cause problems. To solve this, the conveyor is slanted upward, which allows gravity to peel the tops of piles off, spreading them more evenly. And flappy smacker boys are used to break things up further. Once the mail is roughly spread out, the next step is to remove any bulky parcels with the help of a giant screw roller. The roller is positioned so that only skinny mail can slide under. Any large packages are repeatedly smacked to the side until they fall into a bin, where they're manually sorted and dispatched by actual human beings. That's bulky items taken care of. The remaining mail now tips down a waterfall chute and onto a new conveyor, but this time they're traveling vertically instead of flat. The next item to cull is undersized parcels. Colortron deals with these pesky items by dropping them into the abyss. But letters that are 3 inches or taller get safely carried over with the help of pinch conveyors. At the bottom of the abyss is a tray where the small items are collected and manually processed. Now all that's left is standard-sized mail and oversized flats. The last culling operation removes these oversized pieces with pinch conveyors again, but this time they're positioned even higher, so they only grab the big guys, yeeting them into a bin for manual processing. But if a standard-sized letter is standing tall, it can get mistaken for oversized and yeeted out as well. So there's a flappy snacky boy somewhere earlier in the process that makes sure all the mail is resting along their long edges. That's oversized flats taken care of. But even though the letters are all standard size now, they're not separated evenly, and some are even overlapping, which can hide the addresses and stamps. So to separate them, the overlapping letters are squeezed until they peel apart, and then a pick-off belt grabs the leading mail piece, flicking it forward 1 letter at a time. Now we're left with a perfectly spaced out stream of standard-sized mail. Congratulations! You made it through the culling stage safely. You're still alive, right? Great! Cause now you're up to the facing stage, where Colortron wants the letters facing the same direction. Each letter's orientation is found using cameras. by detecting the phosphorescent border on its stamp, which glows under UV light. At the start, Colourtron wants all the stamps along the bottom edge, so any letters that are in the wrong orientation are sent to the twisting belts of death, where they get flippity-doo. Mail that's oriented correctly is diverted and merged again later. Letters with stamps in truly cursed locations sail straight into a reject stack for manual handling. You now move on to the cancelling stage, where a postmark is smacked across the stamp to show that it's been spent. Stamps equal money, so cancelling them means they can't be reused in an infinite money glitch. This stage is also when the letter's addresses are read using high-speed cameras in a process known as optical character recognition. Basically, the camera turns the image of each character into a grid of ones and zeros. 1 means black, 0 means white. The computer has a database of what it expects each character to look like in terms of ones and zeros, so it does a comparison, finds the best statistical match, and decodes the whole address that way. This can get a bit funky when people write in cursive though. If the handwriting is unreadable, the photo is beamed to a remote handling center, where a human being manually attempts to decipher the chicken scratch. Once the computer knows the letter's destination, a special fluorescent barcode is sprayed onto it with this information, now serving as the letter's new identity tag. From here on, this barcode is the only thing the machines care about. Finally, the letters get flipped again. So now the stamps are all at the top and get sent to 2 different bins depending on their orientation, conveniently ending up facing the same way in the end. Another handy thing Colourtron does is send a local and outgoing mail to separate bins. So mail staying inside white country gets sent to these 2 bins, whereas mail going to all the other countries gets sent to these 2 bins. Now all the mail has been fully processed and is perfect for Sorgatron consumption. Thanks Colourtron for all your help. Getting back to our original problem, how do we send all this jumbled mail in the right direction? It's going to different places all across the world, and if you gave it to Posty like this, they'd need a teleporter to deliver everything on time. That's where Sorgatron comes in. Sorgatron's job is taking this jumbled stack of mail that's heading in all different directions and separating them into different bins according to their destination addresses. So first we sort by zip codes. Blue countries' zip codes start with 1, green countries with 2, and yellow countries with 3. To start this process, the mail clerk takes the stack of letters and feeds it to Sorgatron. She gobbles them up one by one, scanning the fluorescent barcode to determine which bin the letters belong to. Oh, this one's blue mail, towards the blue bin you go. The letters travel sandwiched in between 2 high-speed belts, and in front of each bin is a special infrared light barrier with a transmitter on one side and a receiver on the other. When a letter flows past a bin, it breaks the light barrier, so Sorgatron knows exactly when it needs to activate its deflector to smack the letter into the correct bin. And in reality, all of this happens really fast, like this fast. Once the machine has finished its perfect pile pooping, we're left with 3 stacks of mail, each separated by region. You're then taken to the loading docks and off you go! All across the world. Of course, there's only 3 regions in this example, but Earth has about 200 countries and many more states, cities, and towns. So you can imagine how big Sorgatrons can actually get. In fact, mail centers can have up to 15 Sorgatrons or more working simultaneously. And hey, look at that! You've just arrived at Blue Regional Mail Center, and guess who's waiting for you? Another Sorgatron! Now we need to sort the letters into separate piles for each zip code. And then within a zip code, we do another sort to separate them into piles for each postie. You get a pile, and you get a pile! But there's still a problem here. The pile is in a completely random order. So when Posty arrives at a letterbox, they'll have to spend a lot of time searching for the right letter. Wouldn't it be nice if the stack was in Posty's exact door-to-door delivery order? They could just pick each letter off the top of the pile. Let's think about this problem for a second. Let's say in this zip code, we have 3 friendly neighborhood posties, and they're each assigned a delivery route. Street A, Street B, and Street C. For plot reasons, each street has exactly 10 houses, and every single house has a letter to be delivered to them. So right now, the mail clerk back at the sorting facility has a jumbled stack of 30 letters. But in the end, we want one bin for each street, filled with letters perfectly in order, houses 1 to 10. So let's see how Sortatron goes with our regular sorting method. And, the first address is letter 10 for Street B. But we can't put it into the bin yet because letter 1 needs to go in first. Okay, so let's just hold on to that one for now. Next is letter 7 for Street A. Alright, I guess we'll hold on to that one too. Oh look! Now it's letter 1 for Street B. Into the bin you go. And the next one is letter 7, Street C. Great. You can see how inefficient this is. Now imagine if you had 100 houses per street. To solve this, we need a different sorting program instead. Let's restart our example. The new program requires 2 sorting passes. The first pass groups all the letters by delivery sequence order, with 1 bin allocated for each number in the sequence. The first letter in our stack was going to house 10 on Street B, so it goes to the bin for all the 10s, as it's the 10th number in the sequence. The next letter was for house 7, Street A, so it goes into the 7s bin. House 1, Street B, into the 1s bin, and house 7, Street C, into the 7s bin again, and so on and so forth. It might seem a bit strange at first, mixing up mail from all different streets together, but it'll make sense in a second. So we now have 10 bins containing 3 letters each, and the mail clerk collects the bins all in order. 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s, and refeeds them together into Sortatron for a second pass. Since the first pass did all the hard work, the incoming stack has the letters in delivery sequence order already. So all Sortatron needs to do now is sort each letter into its respective street. The 1s stack first, then the 2s, the 3s, and so on. At the end, you're left with 3 neat piles, 1 for each street, and perfectly sorted into all our posties' door-to-door delivery orders. You can actually use this method for unlimited houses, as long as you have enough bins. Great work, Sortatron 3000! And 4000, and 5000, and 6000, and finally, all the nicely ordered piles are dispatched to local mail distribution centers. And when you get there, guess who's waiting for you? Another sort! Nah, it's just all the posties. The posties should in theory just be able to chuck the mail stacks into their bag and then whee! But machines and humans can mess up the ordering sometimes. Even the best doggo can make mistakes. So our diligent postie might need to do one final check, just to make sure that everything is correct. And then it's whee! Whee! And that's it! You've officially survived the postal system and made it safely to your destination. Into the shredder you go. See ya next time! Here's how you can become a real cyborg right now. Step 1. Have a body made of flesh and blood. Step 2. Put the body through terrible accident. Wait. Step 3. Get smart engineers to experiment on you for research purposes. But you're still stuck on step 2 right now. So how about we take a look at some real-life examples of cybernetic upgrades you can get? Great! We've got sense augmentation, telepathic communication, and finally, bionic limbification. Let's start at the top. Bionic eyes.
Hostile detected.
In 1978, engineer William Dobell tried to create artificial vision. He found that when you electrically stimulate the visual cortex, a splotch of light called a phosphene is perceived. He then stabbed a bunch of little electrodes in and mapped video camera footage to them, creating a dot matrix of phosphenes. So now someone wearing the device could see the outline of shapes. One of his blind patients even regained enough vision to drive a car. I can finally see now! His work was showing signs of truly helping people.
And then he died. And everyone realized that he barely documented anything. All that research straight down the toilet. But since then, there have been many advances in bionic eye technology. Devices like the Argus 2 now allow you to read large text.
Buskri?
Oh. Imagine if you could record and replay memories, or you could even stream other people's camera feeds and relive them for yourself. Maybe you could even zoom in. And enhance. One day, I could even hack into your eyes and play Doggo videos directly into your brain. Well anyways, congratulations on your new bionic eyes. But did you know people nowadays are experimenting with non-human senses as well? Magnetic sense. This one's a weird modification, but you need all the help you can get, my friend. So you get a professional to cut your finger open and stick a itty-bitty magnet inside. Now it wiggles whenever you're near a magnetic field. Whoa. Seems a bit gimmicky, but it could be useful for an electrician. You could sense the shape and intensity of magnetic fields, and even distinguish between AC and DC voltages. But there would be so many disadvantages. Like, how would you get an MRI done? Have you seen how strong their magnets are? So we need to, scan you for cancer. Sir? Or even worse, it just rips out of your skin. You couldn't get past airport security either. But at least you can pick up paper clips with your finger. But your implant would demagnetize over time, so eventually you're just left with a piece of trash. And a demagnetized magnet. Looks good on you though, just don't get too close to that machine. Color sense. Neil Harbison was born with a rare form of complete colorblindness, and at the age of 22, he turned into the world's first Pikmin. He has a cyborg antenna implanted into his skull, with a camera on one end and a sound vibration implant on the other. Now, he can hear colors through audible vibrations based on what the camera is seeing. The cool part is that he can see infrared and ultraviolet light too. Today's a sunscreen kind of day. But turns out, having your brain constantly vibrating isn't fun. Stop, please. But the human brain is plastic. Not literally made of plastic, but able to adapt and learn. So even though there was this new sense forcing its way in, Neil's brain eventually accepted it. Just like how our brains aren't overwhelmed by our eyes constantly seeing and our ears constantly hearing. I'll give you this antenna. Doesn't really do anything, but it's cute. Cyborg Sense Speed Round. North Sense is a little chest implant that jiggles every time you face north. Centero is a proximity sensor that jiggles when you're next to another Centero user. Seismic Sense is an implant that jiggles when the Earth jiggles. These cyborgs sure do a lot of jiggling, don't they? I guess we should sort that out now, huh? Telepathic communication. Humans communicate like this. But imagine if you could talk like this instead. Well, to do this, you'd need to read information from one brain and write it to other brains or computers. Neuralink is already working on this with their brain-computer implant, and they've recently completed their first human trial. The patient was paralyzed from the shoulders down after an accident, and now he can use his mind to play RuneScape. The chip has a bunch of electrode threads which can read different signals from your brain. Their software then maps these signals to cursor movements on a screen. And you could use this technology to map a brain to any computer interface, like a Jaeger. With this implant, you can now control this Roomba. Here you go, buddy. Right now, brain-to-brain communication is pretty difficult, because seizures. But a simpler option would be to read a message from one brain and use a computer to transmit it to an ear implant. You could basically have your own private radio channels in your head. Reading information from brains could be a bit scary though. I don't want people to know my intrusive thoughts. Neil the Pikmin and his jiggly cyborg buddy achieved a different form of cyborg communication with Bluetooth. And I mean a literal Bluetooth. When they were in close range, they could communicate in Morse code by tapping their teeth. What happens when they're eating though? How could you say that? Anyways, that's communication sorted. Wait, where'd he go? I guess it's time to get you some real legs now. Bionic limbs. At the age of 17, rock climber Hugh Herr had both his legs amputated due to frostbite. Doctors told him he would never climb again, but instead of giving up, he turned his clunky prosthetic legs into ones that could outperform real human limbs. Spiked feet for climbing vertical ice walls, extendable legs for reaching far footholds, and narrow-tipped feet that could slip into cracks way too thin for regular feet. His legs also didn't get tired while climbing anymore, because he didn't have any. Now, he finds himself as the director of biomechatronics at MIT, where he designed special brain-controlled bionic legs. Microprocessors constantly adjust the stiffness of his joints to mimic how humans naturally walk. Like, look at how smoothly he moves. He hopes to end disability in humans one day, but there's a few major problems to solve first. One is that it's really hard to interface with human skin. It's hairy, oily, sweaty, and it chafes and cuts easily. You can't just duct tape a prosthetic on and call it a day. Hugh's research is developing synthetic skin to tackle this problem. It can change its shape and stiffness under electrostatic forces. Kinda like how the glider cape from The Dark Knight turns from floppy to stiff when you run a current through it. So the synthetic skin is soft and stretchy on your squishy parts and stiffer where there's solid bone surface underneath. Sounds pretty comfy. But a gross problem that's often overlooked is sweat. Since prosthetics basically surround amputated limbs like a shoe, sweat doesn't evaporate, so some sports prosthetics include drain holes. Another interfacing option is osseointegration, which involves implanting titanium directly into the bone, and then you can swap out whatever attachment you want. But the biggest problem is that bionic limbs don't really feel like they're a part of you. Humans have a sense called proprioception, which is basically your body's spatial awareness. For example, if you close your eyes, you're still able to touch the tip of your nose with your finger. The same can't be said for bionic limbs just yet. But research is currently being done to solve this, and soon you could pick any bionic limb you want, and it would feel like a part of you. Bionic Limb Speed Round. Jason Barnes is a drummer with a bionic arm attachment with 2 drumsticks, allowing him to play rhythms no other human can play. Jesse Sullivan is one of the world's first cyborgs who had a bionic arm that could be controlled through nerve grafts in his chest. This dude stuck a USB in his finger. And there's a company called Psionic that makes prosthetic arms that can punch through things. And now, with a few little adjustments, all finished. You look great! Ah, you're welcome. See you next time! Did you know that this is the biggest object humans have ever sent into space? It may not look like it, but this is actually a 20-kilometer long piece of wire. That's as tall as the Empire State Building. Well, 45 of them. But what's he doing there? It must be the universe's longest string telephone. Hello? Hello?
Prepare for invasion, Earth.
Well, that's not good. To actually understand what it's for, we need to look at Faraday's law of induction. If I move this loop of wire through this magnetic field, a small current is produced. You can increase the power generated by using more wire and moving it faster. In fact, stick a propeller on the end and now you have yourself a wind turbine. This concept made the big brains at NASA go, you know how, like, the Earth is, like, basically a giant magnet? Yeah, bro, totally. What if we use, like, a super long wire, bro? Huh? So $400 million later, this is the plan they came up with. Earth has big magnetic field, so we send spaceship with big wire. But Earth's magnetic field very weak, so we send even bigger wire. Then we move spaceship super fast to generate power. Then we rule the galaxy. The system was called the TSS-1, or Tethered Satellite System. 1. It had a base satellite, a sub-satellite, and a 20-kilometer long conductive tether connecting them both, acting as the wire. Now, you may have noticed something wrong here. In our original example, we used a loop of wire because electricity needs a closed loop to flow, and this tether is not a loop. But electricity is really just the flow of electrons, and turns out there's a layer of the Earth's atmosphere called the ionosphere, which has a bunch of free electrons just floating around. So, using a fancy electron collector and emitter, NASA designed a system to create electron flow using the ionosphere, completing the loop. In 1992, TSS-1 was launched aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis. It successfully reached the ionosphere, and it was finally time to unfurl the 20-kilometer-long tether.
Houston, we have a problem.
This screw isn't gonna cut it. Okay, swap him out then. Hey, we should test everything again to make sure it works, right? Nah, it should be good. It was not good. That beefy screw caused the tether reel to jam up at a whopping 260 meters, pretty much 1% of its maximum length. Moral of the story, always test and retest after making any design changes. Quite the expensive lesson to learn, but surely they'll get it next time, right? Right! Ooh, we made it past 260 meters this time! And the tether successfully deployed to its full length of 20 kilometers.
Houston, we have a problem.
It was so close, but when the tether reached 19.7 kilometers, a small defect in the insulation near the bottom led to a large arc that melted it. And that's how we ended up here, a giant space noodle floating in the sky. It was sighted all over the world, like in Australia, in Hawaii, in southern USA. And a few weeks later, it re-entered the atmosphere, cooking the space noodle once and for all. But the big question is, did the experiment work though? Well, NASA managed to collect some data, and the tether generated almost 3.5 kilowatts of electrical power, enough to run 3 toasters at once. Okay, that doesn't seem like much, but for context, most small satellites only need 1 toaster amount of power. But despite this, the tethered satellite system missions were abandoned, and the results weren't publicized. Well, apart from being roasted by the media. I guess it is kind of embarrassing to have your mistake plastered in the sky for the whole world to see, but I really hope they try again, because I imagine a night sky in the future where space noodles hang from every spaceship and satellite. Hashtag bring back space noodles.
Please, I haven't seen the sun in years.
See you next time! Would you trust your life in the 4 opposable thumbs of a baboon? Well, if you were aboard a train bound for Cape Town in the 1880s, there's a good chance that was exactly what you were doing. Meet Jack the Signal Man. A baboon responsible for preventing trains from crashing into each other. But who gave him this important job in the first place? Well, it all started with a man named James Jumper Wide. He was a signalman who was famous for jumping between rail cars, until he fell, and lost both of his legs. Although he built himself some pegs for legs and a makeshift wheelchair, Jumper thought his career as a signalman was over. Until he stumbled across Jack the Baboon, who had been trained to push an ox cart. After much begging and pleading with the owner, he bought Jack the Baboon and took him home. Jack turned out to be an alcoholic, and refused to do anything unless he was given a few drops of booze. And so, with enough encouragement, Jumper was able to train him to push his wheelchair to work. Don't drink and drive, kids. Jack would watch Jumper hard at work at the levers every single day. Approaching trains would blow a certain number of whistles, which corresponded to the track they wanted to be transferred to. And Jumper would hobble around with great difficulty and set the right levers for the train. And just by observing, Jack was able to learn and memorize these sequences. It didn't take long till Jumper let him try flipping the levers himself, and soon, Jumper had given the monkey full control. But it didn't take long for railway authorities to receive a complaint from a passenger, and after confirming the ridiculousness for themselves, they fired the pair on the spot. Jumper pleaded with authorities to let Jack prove his abilities, and after harassing them for days, they eventually agreed to give him a chance. And Jack's performance left them speechless. In fact, Jack had performed so well that they made him an official employee of the railway, with a salary of 20 cents a day and a half a bottle of beer weekly. I don't know what Jack needed the money for, but he definitely made good use of that alcohol. And after being employed for 9 years in the railway, Jack never made a single mistake, performing his job even better than a human could. He eventually died of tuberculosis in 1890, and his skull resides in Albany Museum to this day.
Oh, but memorizing a bunch of lemur positions is easy.
Well, why don't we play a memory game then? I'm gonna show you 5 random numbers between 1 and 9, and I'll hide them after a short amount of time, and you need to recall their positions in ascending order. We'll start easy. Ready, set, go. Okay, so get your answers ready now. If it was 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9, then good job. I think most of you got that. Now, let's ramp up the difficulty. Ready, set, go. Yeah, I'm gonna guess none of you got that one. But guess what? Ayumu the chimpanzee did. Ayumu is a part of the eye research project in Kyoto University, and he's really good at this memory test. I mean, look at that speed. Look at that technique. The project was actually started to research Ayumu's mum, Chimpanzee Eye, the first chimp in the world able to represent numbers with Arabic numerals, and she even liked to paint for fun. So naturally, big brain mum, but big brain son. Ayumu answered the memory test correctly with an accuracy of 79% on average, maintaining his accuracy even with shorter test times. This was compared to human subjects on the same test, and, well, this is what their graph looked like. These results made it seem like young chimpanzees have a much better working memory than humans, but some scientists disagreed with this, saying,
You will have more practice time.
So, in another experiment, the humans were given more time to practice the task first, and after 2,500 trials, they were just able to match Ayumu's accuracy levels. I expected a bit more out of the humans, to be honest. Shouldn't they be way better with numbers than a chimpanzee? Well, speaking of numbers, Clever Hans was a horse from Berlin in the 1900s, who seemingly had the ability to do quick math. His owner would ask him a question, and Clever Hans would answer by tapping his hoof the correct number of times. Seems a bit sus, and the German Board of Education thought so too, because they conducted an official scientific investigation into Hans's abilities. A man named Oscar Funks designed the experiment, and hypothesized that Hans's owner was sneakily sending him signals. So he made a random stranger ask the questions instead. But Hans was still able to nail the answers. Perplexed? Funks then used blinders on Hans so he couldn't see the questioner, and his ability to answer the questions plummeted. In some cases, he would even keep tapping his hoof on the ground indefinitely. But why couldn't he answer correctly when he couldn't see the questioner? Funks had an idea. He asked Hans a question that he himself didn't know the answer to, and amazingly, Hans proceeded to do this again. The conclusion Funks came to was that Hans was able to pick up on subtle, involuntary gestures from the questioner when his answer reached the right number. He was so good at detecting these minute postural changes that the questioners themselves were totally unaware that they were doing them. So Hans may not have been a big brain maths genius, but he was a genius at reading people's body language. Something humans themselves are notoriously bad at. Could you imagine Hans as a detective, though? I don't know. I swear. This whole occurrence coined the term the Clever Hans effect, where an animal predicts what someone wants them to do without actually understanding their own actions. For this reason, it's important to conduct animal experiments in a double-blind fashion, where nobody knows what the expected results are. Ah, hey Alex. In 1977, animal psychologist Dr. Irene Pepperberg bought an African grey parrot from a pet store. She named him Alex, short for Avian Learning Experiment. And over the next 30 years, she proceeded to make him the smartest animal in the world. Alex had a spoken vocabulary of over 100 words, but instead of just imitating words, he seemed to have an understanding of what they actually meant. He could label objects correctly based on their shape, size, color, or material, and even created his own words, like when he was shown an apple for the first time and called it a banary, combining two words he had already learnt, banana and cherry. Ooh, look at the smart bird brain. Alex also showed genuine anger or surprise when the researchers tried to trick him during tests. If Alex asked for a banana and they gave him a nut instead, he would throw it back.
Foolish human.
He also got frustrated with his fellow research buddies when they answered wrong. How many blocks are there?
4?
The freakiest part was when he looked in the mirror one day and asked,
What color?
This was the first instance in history of an animal subject asking a question. That too, an existential one.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
There's plenty of past examples of animals communicating with humans using sign language and whatnot, but not a single one has asked a question. It's always been,
Give food, give drink, leave me human.
and
Give food.
the cutest thing was that every night before Dr. Pepperberg locked the lab up, Alex would say,
You be good. I love you. See you tomorrow.
and those would be his last words before unexpectedly passing away one night at the age of 31. So far, all of these smart animals have been in some form of captivity, but what about a big brain animal in the wild? In the late 1800s, ships had great difficulty navigating a treacherous stretch of water called Cook's Strait. It was notorious for wrecking ships, and sailors were terrified of passing through. One day, as a ship named the Brindle approached, the crew saw a Risso's dolphin bobbing happily in front of them. And of course, as humans always do, they proceeded to try and kill him. Thankfully, the captain's wife managed to talk them out of it, but to their surprise, despite the threats to his life, the derpy dolphin began to guide the ship safely through the dangerous waters. And from that day onwards, he did the same for every ship passing through. He was given the name Pelorus Jack. When he navigated, not a single shipwreck occurred. Sailors would even refuse to enter the strait unless Pelorus Jack had appeared to guide them. This continued until 1904, when someone aboard the SS Penguin fired their rifle at the dolphin. Pelorus Jack was injured, and he disappeared. The people were devastated, and a law was passed under the Sea Fisheries Act, protecting him from any other attacks on his life. I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to never help out a human again, but on one fateful day, Pelorus Jack reappeared.
Hey guys.
He was a kind-hearted, forgiving creature, ready to help out humans in need again. Except for the SS Penguin, which ended up shipwrecked in the same waters in 1905. And after being a companion to sailors for over 24 years, Pelorus Jack was last seen in April of 1912. There were various speculations about his disappearance, but I'd like to think that he found a nice place to retire in after a long, fulfilling life. He seemed like a pretty cool dude and is fondly remembered as a hero to many New Zealanders. It's really amazing how all these animals were so smart, and it's also amazing how I am a dumb doggo. See you next time. Number 7. Extra limbs. Polymorphia is a rare birth defect in which an affected individual is born with more than the usual amount of limbs. In most cases, the extra limb is usually shrunken or deformed in some way and of not much use. But one case in India showed otherwise. Deepak Paswan was a boy from India with one head, 4 arms, and 4 legs. The limbs were relatively fully formed and also appeared fully functional. Imagine the power you would wield with 4 hands. At the foosball table, you'd be undefeatable. Or imagine DDR with 4 legs. In the Hindu religion, gods are often depicted with numerous limbs. So as news spread of the quote-unquote Octoboy, pilgrims soon traveled from all over India to worship him as an incarnation of their gods. Until scientists figure out that the extra limbs were actually from a parasitic twin that hadn't developed properly in the womb and had somehow fused with him. Turns out he also didn't actually have control over the extra limbs either. They were just kinda glitching every now and then. So to improve Deepak's quality of life, the extra limbs were cut off, and ever since he's been able to live a relatively normal life, much to the dismay of the pilgrims. Number 6. Supermemory. Hyperthermestic syndrome is a condition that allows people to remember abnormally large numbers of life experiences. Sounds like a cheat code to life, right? You'd be the world's most famous walking encyclopedia and win millions of dollars in popular trivia game shows. But in reality, hyperthermesiacs cannot choose what memories are permanently stored in their brains. Information like memorizing schoolwork would be treated as trivial. So unfortunately, they won't be doing well on any tests at school. But what they are great at is remembering that one time they let a big one rip in the school cafeteria. Remembering these highly personal events can often be very embarrassing or traumatic. But could you imagine dating a hyperthermesiac? Hey babe, I'm going to the store to get some milk. Wait! Are you going to leave me like Mark did on the 3rd of January 1984? What, babe, no. How about like Peter did on the 8th of April 1991? No, what are you talking about? Oh, okay then. Don't forget to buy the low-fat milk this time. Oh yeah, sure, honey. Unlike the time you forgot it on the 21st of September 1997, and the 13th of November 1999, and the 16th of June 2002. He's gonna leave me. So yeah, the vast majority of hyperthermesiacs find it really difficult to sustain long committed relationships, leading to a lack of social connections and loneliness. Number 5. Exoskeleton armor. Fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, also known as Stoneman syndrome, is an extremely rare genetic condition that allows some individuals to rapidly heal themselves when damaged. But there's a catch. Imagine a person suffers a surface injury. Instead of replacing the skin tissue with more skin tissue, the body replaces it with bone instead. This process is called ossification. Can you imagine what would happen if you injured all your skin? You'd form an exoskeleton-like layer of armor made of pure bone, and literally be a superhuman. But in depressing reality, this disorder is almost 100% fatal. The issue is that the body ossifies all damaged tissue, which can make joints stiff and be dangerous to internal organs. You injure your knee, ossified.
I can't walk.
You injure your eyelid, ossified.
I can't see.
You injure your dick. Well, I guess that's a real boner now. Any tiny injury would potentially become devastating to you. If you strain your voice, you could permanently lose it. If you damage your airways, bony growth would restrict your breathing. Even if you don't injure yourself, your body is constantly breaking down and repairing itself. So you're basically doomed. You'd be slowly and inevitably turning into a bone statue. But the absolute worst part is there's almost no way this can be medically solved at the moment, as surgical removal of ossified tissue causes the body to repair the area with additional bone, leading to a fatal catch-22. It's a disorder that could in theory be an awesome superpower, but in reality, it's much more like a living nightmare. Number 4. Impervious to pain. Congenital insensitivity to pain, or CIP, is a rare condition where an individual cannot feel pain. Dude, are you okay? Huh? What do you mean? An estimated 1 in every 25,000 people are diagnosed with this condition, and in most cases, the person has actually never experienced pain before. This condition is caused by a mutation to the PRDM12 gene, which is important for the development of pain-sensing nerve cells. Affected individuals have been recorded to register touch, but the pain circuitry is completely cut off. Interestingly, CIP individuals are still susceptible to emotional pain. Physical and emotional pain are both processed by the same part of your brain, so this was surprising to me. But it's more of an issue with the physical sensory input as opposed to pain processing in the brain. This would be a pretty neat power to have for a super soldier though. Someone you could just throw into the middle of the battlefield who doesn't care if they get shot. There's actually a village in northern Sweden called Vitangi, where there's an abnormally high frequency of individuals with CIP. We might need to watch out for them in the near future. In reality, this condition is extremely dangerous to the affected individual because pain is vital for survival. Individuals with CIP often die during childhood because fatal injuries just go unnoticed. It is tragically very common for people to burn to death without even knowing. Number 3. Indestructible bones. Trichodento-osseous syndrome is a rare condition affecting no more than a couple thousand people worldwide. It leads to people having bones that are so dense that they've been known to break baseball bats and even withstand car crashes. A mutation in the DLX3 gene causes bone density in the affected individual to increase significantly. It reminds me a lot of Wolverine's skeleton, like if you combine this disorder with the regeneration from Stoneman syndrome, minus the ossification and increased likelihood of death, you're basically Wolverine. However, there are several major drawbacks. These individuals are cursed with having extremely weak teeth that break easily and painfully, or end up falling out completely in some cases. They have brittle nails and dry, curly, and flaky hair as well. Research into TDO is prevalent right now, as it may hold the key to curing osteoporosis, which is the gradual weakening of skeletal structures many people develop in their old age. This would make a huge difference in improving their quality of life, as breaking bones from bad falls is incredibly common for elderly and in many cases life-threatening. Number 2. Super strength. Myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy is a rare condition that literally gives you super strength. Affected individuals have over twice the usual muscle mass of an average human, and they also have increased muscular strength, all without going to the gym or lifting weights to maintain it. Imagine waking up and just being jacked. This condition is caused by a mutation in the MSTN gene, which is usually responsible for limiting muscle growth to prevent us from growing too large. But in these super strength individuals, it doesn't work as a limiter. A real-life case of this is Liam Hoekstra from the United States. Doctors recorded that he had prominent muscle development in his legs as an infant. Like bro came out of the womb jacked. Yeah, he never skipped leg day in there. Bro could do a pull-up at 8 months old, had a six-pack when he was just 3 years old, and could lift 3-kilogram dumbbells with his arms fully extended at just 3 years old as well. Do you understand how crazy that is? Bro probably only weighed 3 kgs at the time. To add icing on the cake, there are no known medical complications to this condition. All those benefits and not a single drawback has been found? That is just plain unfair. And that's why it gets the number 2 spot on this list. Number 1. Fearlessness. Geordie Cernick is a man from the UK who was diagnosed with Cushing's syndrome, where his body produced too much cortisol, which caused him to have severe, life-threatening weight gain and high blood pressure. After numerous brain surgeries and complications, in a final surgical operation, his adrenal glands were removed from his body. This gruesome operation required removing one of his ribs, and it was extremely painful. Thankfully, his Cushing's syndrome was cured as a result, but it came with a price. When Geordie woke up in the hospital bed, he was on life support. He had numerous tubes coming out of him, and the doctors solemnly told him that there had been complications. He had developed pneumonia and then meningitis, which is a potentially fatal infection of the brain. But surprisingly, upon receiving the bad news, Geordie had no response. He didn't feel anything. Among the many functions of the adrenal glands, one of them is influencing your body's stress response, also known as fight or flight, namely through the hormone adrenaline. Turns out, due to the removal of his adrenal glands, the part of Geordie's brain that controlled fear had been turned off. So now he lives a life of zero fear. Can you imagine that? Not feeling the nervous pit in your stomach before an important test? Or not feeling shy and flustered when asking a girl out? Not having a second thought when taking a risk? You'd be an absolute Giga Chad! Especially when cases of anxiety and paranoia are increasing in our society right now. Fearlessness would drastically change the course of your life. But just like many of the other disorders on this list, there's a catch. Fear is a fundamental survival instinct, and the absence of it could be very dangerous. But even worse than that, Geordie lost something much more important after his surgery. He lost the ability to feel excited for things, to feel suspense, and in some cases, even joy. It took away his ability to experience life.
But what do I know? I'm just a dumb doggo. See you next time. Where are you going, bug-sized friend? Don't you want to know what it's like to fight more of the deadliest spiders in the world?
Oh no, not again.
Well, let's find out. Challenger 1. Tarantulas. The Goliath bird-eating spider is the largest species of tarantula, and it spans up to 12 inches long. Now you, yes you watching this video, open your palm and look at it. This spider is significantly bigger than what you're looking at. Just our fuzzy little friend. Although they're not too venomous to humans, their massive 1.5-inch fangs can easily break human skin. But on the rare chance that you're able to put the tarantula on the defensive, the spider is equipped with a special weapon called urticating hairs. When it's fleeing, it uses its hind legs to quickly flick off jagged bristles that cloud the air behind it. The bristles are a severe irritant and can get stuck in your skin and eyes, preventing you from pursuing. They're typically slow and stealthy hunters, suddenly lunging at prey when they get close enough. And despite their size, they're on a liquid-only diet, preying on frogs, rodents, lizards, snakes, and of course, birds sometimes. They have special teeth called cheliceraal teeth that help with gripping and chowing down prey for optimal nutrient suckability. Tarantula species are also some of the most colorful spiders, and since they're also quite docile around people, they make pretty good pets. While we're talking about giant cuddly spiders, there's another important spider I should cover, the giant huntsman spider. It has legs that also span to about 12 inches. They hunt by chasing prey down using their speed. They're pretty harmless to humans though, they just want to be friends. You know, I'm actually terrified of spiders. I remember this one time during school camp. I was kinda muddy after a mud run, so I go into this crusty cabin to shower, and in a crack in the door frame, at eye level, is the biggest huntsman spider I have ever seen in my life. It was one of these guys, and he was as big as my head, and he was looking at me and wiggling his little mouth bits. I was naked, vulnerable. And I was like, nope. So I wet my hair in the sink to make it look like I showered, and then spent the rest of the day covered in mud. So I kinda feel bad for putting you through all this. Not really. But they asked for it, so blame them. Challenger 2. Jumping spiders. Jumping spiders are the most horrifying, bloodthirsty creatures in existence. Most species span up to a terrifying 0.6 inches. Their two large middle eyes have exceptionally sharp vision, able to accurately judge depth. And as soon as they've locked onto you, they're ready to pounce. Spiders have an open circulatory system, so their blood kinda just floats around, unlike humans. And by squishing muscles in their bodies, they can increase blood pressure in their legs, which launches them into the air, allowing them to jump over 20 times their own body length. But what if they miss their target? Okay, I'm kidding, she's not dead. Before jumping, they make sure to secure a silk dragline behind them. Kinda like a bungee cord. It allows them to take big risks because they can always reel themselves back. But once they've got you, they liquefy you with venom and digestive enzymes, and then slap up that nutrient soup. If you're ever around one, take a close look because sometimes they'll actually track you with their cute little beady eyes. Challenger 3. orb weavers. Orb weavers are most commonly known for their iconic wheel-shaped webs, and the largest one is the giant golden orb weaver, spanning up to 6 inches long. They get their name from the golden silk they produce, and the webs they make act like giant nets for flying insects that are dumb enough to fall into it. The spider sits right in the middle of the web, and as soon as prey lands, it uses its keen vibration sensors to locate it, and immediately runs over to deliver a venomous bite. But that's only one species, and there's so many more to talk about. So, Orb Weaver Spider Speed Round. The longhorned orb weaver has crazy looking long horns, possibly because it makes it really hard for predators to swallow it. This is a decoy building cyclosa spider, right here. The rest is a decoy built using debris, to trick predators into picking the wrong thing instead. There's an orb weaver called the alien butt spider. Huh? Yeah, that's its butt, not its face. The triangle weaving spider turns its web into a slingshot, launching extra silk at trap prey to ensnare them even tighter. Blech. The mirror spider has shiny reflective patches on its abdomen. It can shrink and expand these patches to camouflage by breaking up its outline. And finally, there's the zombie spider, who is just a normal little cave orb weaver that got infected by a fungus. And now the fungus mind controls it to do its bidding. There's even more, but that's a long list. So, next challenger. Challenger 4. Assassin spiders. Assassin spiders are quite tiny, only growing to about the size of a grain of rice. But under the hood, they look like pelicans. Which is why they're also called pelican spiders. But they're mostly known as assassin spiders because
They assassinate other spiders.
they can track down spiders by their webs, carefully tiptoeing over any trigger lines to avoid alerting them, allowing them to get within striking range. Then, using their long curved jaws and their extendo neck, they attack from a distance. This range makes them very difficult to counter. Once they've skewered you, they hoist you into the air, inject venom, and eat you, all while staying safely out of reach. Challenger 5. Dock spiders. Dock spiders get their name because they're usually found on docks. And all around docks too. They can span up to 4 inches long, and their special ability is that they can run on water. They can do this thanks to surface tension, which makes the surface act like an elastic sheet if you're light enough. Their weight is also spread evenly across 8 legs, each covered in water-repelling hairs that keep them from sinking.
Hey, I have hairy legs. Can I do that?
Nope, you're too fat. Dock spiders don't use webs to hunt. Instead, they kinda use the water surface as a web. They sit on the surface and listen for vibrations. And as soon as they detect movement, they bolt. They're big enough to catch small fish too. And despite how scary they look, they're not dangerous to humans and just want to keep you company while you're fishing. Challenger 6. Crab spiders. Crab spiders get their name from their crab shape and the fact that they usually walk sideways. How is this not just a crab then? They're quite small, growing up to 1 inch long, and they mainly prey on pollinators, so they love hunting near flowers. So you're attracted to the sweet scent of nectar. The species you're facing is the goldenrod crab spider. But where is it? It has the special ability to change colors between yellow and white to camouflage with the flowers, but the process can take several days. These changes are triggered based on visual cues, which scientists found out when they blacked out the spider's eyes and it couldn't change color anymore. They have a pretty low success rate at hunting though, because they're usually trying to catch flying prey with their bare spider hands. But with no wings, you're an easy meal. There are so many unique crab spider species and abilities. There are bird poop crab spiders that both resemble and smell like bird poo. They use this ability to lure in prey that like stinky doo-doo. And there's also a species called the ant-mimicking crab spider, which resembles an ant by sticking its front 2 legs up as antennae to stealthily infiltrate ant nests and eat them. Man, ants have it rough out here with all these imposters. Challenger 7. Funnel web spiders. This is the infamous Sydney funnel web, one of the deadliest spiders in the world, and in my opinion, one of the scariest looking too. What? They discovered a new species that's deadlier than this guy? Here, hold this. Introducing the Newcastle Big Boy. Spanning up to 4 inches long, this guy has even longer fangs and larger venom glands than the Sydney funnel web. Well, isn't that great news for you? Most spiders try to run away when you bother them. But funnel webs stand their ground by rearing up and displaying their fangs, which are strong enough to punch right through your fingernail. Using venom is quite expensive for spiders, and most use it sparingly. But when a funnel web bites, it's been known to empty its entire venom tank into you. Sometimes they even stay latched on, biting you repeatedly just to make sure. In the worst case, even a non-bug-sized human could die from a bite within 3 hours. But an anti-venom was created in 1981, and ever since there have been no recorded deaths. This one's unrecorded. Interestingly, their venom is not very effective against other mammals like rabbits. Or even dogs.
Aww, is the little guy tickling me again?
Challenger 8. Daddy Longlegs. Look at these wiggly boys. The daddy longlegs, also known as the cellar spider, is a very common spider you can find in your home. Like you've probably got one watching you right now. They can span up to 4 inches long, but it's like 99% legs and 1% little bean body. They hunt by invading other spider webs and stealing prey, or sometimes they just steal the spider instead. They're super good at this because they're able to keep their distance with their long legs while wrapping their victims in silk. Like, how do you even hit that? And even if you manage to get one of its legs, it's able to quickly detach it and get away. They also have this really funny mechanic where they start crazily vibrating in their webs when disturbed. This could be to make them appear bigger and more threatening, or to make their position more confusing to predators. Challenger 9. Ant-slaying spiders. The Australian ant-slaying spider has one of the coolest hunting abilities of all spiders. When you face off against him, he doesn't look too tough, but then the next second he's gone! And he's cartwheeling right over you, and in midair, he attaches a piece of silk to your back, landing gracefully behind you. And then he continues to twirl around you, wrapping you in silk before you can do anything. And what's even crazier is that in the wild, all of this happens vertically, on the side of a tree. Once the spider's done, it's pretty much a wrap for you. He bites you and sucks out that nutrient soup. Challenger 10. Brown recluses. The brown recluse is most famous for its flesh-melting, necrotic venom. But despite being one of the 4 deadly spider horsemen of the apocalypse, it's probably the most misunderstood spider. They get their name because they literally don't want to get in your way. The spider's first instinct is to run away. When cornered, they use these quick horizontal movements to avoid being touched. Or sometimes they even play dead. They really just want to be left alone. If you keep bothering them after all that, well, you were asking for it. The venom of the brown recluse contains a special toxin called sphingomyelinase D, which damages the membranes of cells it comes in contact with, killing the tissue in a process called necrosis. And it looks like he got you pretty good there. Challenger 11. Camel spiders. Camel spiders span up to 6 inches long, and these guys look absolutely terrifying. Like, look at these choppers. And remember that a lot of you wanted this as a dog-sized pet. But despite their name, technically, camel spiders aren't even spiders. They're actually camels, wait. They aren't spiders because they don't produce venom or spin webs. But they are arachnids of the order Solifugi. And they have 8 legs, so I'm counting them anyways. They can run at speeds of up to 10 miles per hour, and once they reach you, they use their giant chompers to tear and grind you apart. Their creepy jaw mechanism is super specialized for this. They have gotten a bad rap for chasing humans in real life though. I can see why that's concerning. But they're not actually trying to attack you. Apparently, they're just trying to get into the shade you create, because deserts are hot, dude. As you move away from the scary spider, your shadow moves, so they keep chasing you. So you should just stop and be friends with him. Challenger 12. Six-eyed sand spiders. The six-eyed sand spider has 6 eyes.
Bet you didn't see that coming.
They can span up to 4 inches long and they have quite a unique hunting strategy. They dig a small pocket in the ground and bury themselves in the sand to camouflage. It's actually quite cute. Well, if you ignore the fact that it's waiting to ambush you. Once buried, the spider sits in its little sand bunker and waits. It's super well adapted to desert survival with a very slow metabolism, allowing it to stay motionless for weeks without food or water. So when you eventually pass close to the spider, it explodes out and grabs you, injecting necrotic venom before eating you. Fortunately, these spiders are extremely shy, so they rarely bite non-bug-sized humans. But toxicology studies have shown that it potentially has the strongest venom of any spider known to us, like on the same tier as the Brazilian wandering spider and the funnel web. And that's it! For real this time. Well, until my next collection is ready, that is. If you like the video, subscribe, like, do a backflip, kiss a spider, and see ya next time!